and welcome to the next in our series of fireside chats. And I'm delighted to be joined today by the Reverend Belinda Seabrook, who is the Assistant Curate in the Parish of Leongatha. Belinda, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your ministry to us today in the service we just celebrated live and recorded as well for the coming Sunday. And some of you might be watching this on Sunday the 8th of November, which is actually the first day of NAIDOC week this year. NAIDOC week having been pushed back from its usual mid-year observance to the middle of November, largely in recognition of the vulnerability of our First Nations people to the pandemic, which is instructive in itself. And so it is lovely to have, as a backdrop today, this painting of Uluru, which is on loan from Cafe 123 just up the road here as it decamps into hopefully a new dispensation in the new year. Belinda, thank you for your sermon to us today. Another great Matthean parable of the wise and the foolish bridesmaids. And you read that for us very, very helpfully. And I love the way that you teased out that Greek word parousia, which is really around that sort of end-time revelation associated with the second coming of Christ. And we don't often get a chance to talk about that, do we, in the church these days? You don't hear a lot of sermons or Bible studies or conversations around that really, really important topic. And what I found so helpful in your reading of that passage was this sense of the parousia as not just one big kind of climactic, end point that we have to kind of wait for, but more like a series of incremental arrivals or visitations that we need to learn to watch for. We need to train our eyes and ears so that we're looking for the right things and can recognise that the ways large and small in which Christ is present and comes to us even now from God's future. And that you had that lovely sense of those things kind of like a piano accordion, sort of the concertina effect, all being sort of pushed up together, and that inbreaking of the kingdom of God into the world. It's a lovely series of images that you used. Do you think as a church we are sufficiently intentional about the quality of our waiting for Christ to come and meet us, to come and be present with us from God's future?
I think it's about individuals, encouraging the next individual, and for the kingdom of God to be present in us where we go. And so that kingdom breaks into relationships, it breaks into our congregations, it breaks into our worship and what we do, and through that the kingdom of God breaks into other people's lives as well, and so you get a snowball effect.
Yeah.
And so what starts out as an intention or a choice to engage with that reality and to see and to listen for that reality and to wait and watch and don't give up.
Yeah.
And to pursue that reality, it has an effect and an influence on others. So when the kingdom of God is broken out in your heart, and Jesus is the King and Jesus reigns in there, and then that is transferred into others, and then that grows.
Yes.
And so I think to understand that as a church is really important, and I'm not sure we fully grasp that in the fullness of how we do church.
And of course, the great season of Advent, which is almost upon us, is a great training ground too, isn't it, for that intentional watching and waiting, not the kind of foot tapping, waiting and looking at the clock and come on, hurry up, but that sense of making sure that we're ready to recognise the coming of Christ and the presence of God's kingdom when it does break in. And of course, as you say, starting with our own selves. Often when talking to children about the kingdom of God, I'll talk about that kind of borderless kingdom that you won't find on any map or on a globe, but where God is in charge in human hearts, that's where you find the kingdom of God. And each of us have a responsibility there, as you said, to be contributing to that kind of critical mass.
Yep.
And it's a bit countercultural, isn't it? Because I think as a culture, we're not great at waiting. We're kind of an instant gratification society, and we expect things to happen with great rapidity and on demand.
Mm.
And I wonder if one of the things that COVID has kind of forced us to do is to learn again how to be a bit more patient and to wait. Do you think that's one of the silver linings maybe of this strange year? For
sure. I think the kingdom of God breaks out in unexpected ways at unexpected times, just like in the parable. And so to expect it in certain ways, or to expect it in our time frame when we want on our watch, in the way that we need it to be, that's where our culture is headed, or is at the moment, in that not being prepared to wait, or being quite disrupted when things don't go the way that we need them to be.
Yeah.
And so this year, I guess, has been a great disruptor of everything.
Yes.
And has given us time and to actually reconsider some things, or to have some space to actually wait
Yes.
upon the Lord, and to see what God's doing, what God's bringing about in His kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's not iView, is it? It's not on demand.
No.
You can't go back and watch it later. Yeah, we have to be ready for it, to greet it in the present. Yeah.
But also too, the whole distraction of the world has been taken away.
Yes.
We can't drive our boats around, and we can't, go to 100 different activities after school.
Yeah.
And so there is a reshuffling and a refocusing, I believe, going on this year.
Yeah. And what's that been like for you, Belinda? Because we remember back to that very warm day in early February when you were ordained a deacon, and then within 4, 5, 6 weeks of that, we were in the first round of COVID lockdown and churches were shut. And so as a person starting out in ordained ministry, tell us what that's been like for you.
I think it's safe to say that nothing happened this year that I expected to happen this year, which has probably taught me about flexibility, and totally being stretched out of comfort zones with technology, but also probably deepened a sense of calling, and really focused, really sharply focused that for me. A huge learning curve and a huge growing opportunity.
Yeah.
They talk about COVID as the great amplifier
Yes.
of things, and it's just been amazing watching that happen within the congregation and within the community, and just seeing, I've really enjoyed seeing that real amplification of goodness in people.
Yeah.
That has come out of this time as well. So it's been extremely encouraging. It's been extremely lonely at times. And there's been a lot of times where you're like, well, Lord, I'm not sure what's going on, but you've got to deal with this, or you've got to do this, and there's that sense of being carried.
Yeah, it kind of throws us back on our core beliefs, doesn't it, and our faith and our prayerfulness. Yeah, and there's clearly some great things happening. I was able to sneak down in the middle of the year when we got a little bit of respite from the restrictions, and we had that lovely service where there were, I think, 4 adults confirmed and others received into the Anglican Church, and so there's plenty of life stirring around the edges of this kind of experience, aren't there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is a great example of what we're talking about before, in that kingdom of God, breaking out in families.
Yeah.
And creating that ripple effect through community.
Yeah. No, it's really encouraging. And And of course you're preparing for the next kind of chapter in your vocational journey, which is to be ordained a priest in the Church of God at the end of November, just a few weeks' time. And that's a wonderfully exciting journey to be on, and I'm sure it has some trepidation and holy awe woven through it as well. What are the things, Belinda, that you're really looking forward to about that priestly ministry? And I know, coming from a Roman Catholic background, you have a very high doctrine of the sacraments. Is being able to preside at the Lord's table part of that kind of excitement that's gathering for you?
Oh, definitely. I think it's the maybe the missing piece for me, and so there's just such a sense of fulfillment, or such a sense of coming home, or things being in the right place. I can feel it kind of coming now. It's
fantastic. It is such
really special.
Yeah, it is such a privilege to be called to stand in that place on behalf of God's people and offer that ministry. And of course, again, with the COVID restrictions, we don't know exactly what shape your ordination service is going to take. We're watching and waiting. The Premier's office with some more guidelines around what might be possible in a few weeks' time, but it might be a more constrained service numerically, and we might have to do some live streaming and think creatively about the laying on of hands so as to do it safely. All of those are kind of imponderables. Is that bearing on your kind of preparation as you move towards that, or are you feeling a sense of kind of peace about that will be what it'll be?
I think back in February was just such a special time as the just a public witness of what was happening in the transition in my life, and the deaconing was just such an amazing event. There's just so many people and so much joy, and I think that this time feels more like just that intimacy between me and God, and the holiness of that. And so I don't feel sad about it being smaller at all. I think that there's something very unique, and I'll have a story to tell forever.
Yeah, you will.
That was ordained in the year of bushfires and COVID.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think it is what it is, and I think that it's God's design for it as well.
Yeah, good on you. That's wonderful. And I think, as you alluded to earlier, perhaps we're learning or relearning that capacity to just kind of roll with things a little more and not feel like we have to be, in control of everything that's happening, just to trust that it'll be okay and that God's in it and God's with us. And
that's right.
Yeah.
And the human stuff is, it comes, it goes, it falls away. And it's okay.
Well, we're looking forward to that, and we'll make sure that you know how to tune in, folks, watching at home. Belinda, one of the things that you've been involved in this year in your parish is applying for an Anglicare Parish Partnerships grant, which you were successful in. And that kind of system is in place to really encourage parishes and other ministry settings to think creatively about ways of connecting into the community. And I think your project was a great example of that. And so, to learn a bit more about that, but B, as an encouragement to others who might be watching, just tell us a little bit about the grant process and the project that you're kind of delivering as a result.
Okay. So the project that we have running at St. Peter's is a community lunch at the end of the Wednesday service. And so we meet for about half an hour and we share Holy Communion together, and then we overflow into the hall where other members of the public come and join in, and we provide lunch for everybody. So there's a couple of things that we think are really important. one is that we actually prepare all the food from scratch. And so that love and that care that goes into that food is not only nourishing for people, but it's something that they may not be getting within their lives and circumstances. So to be cared for by others, but to also receive something that is very healthy and nourishing for their physical bodies, I think is really important.
Yeah.
And the other important part is actually the building of relationships and friendships, and actually the conversations. And so the ministry was born out of seeing extreme loneliness, of an increasing loneliness within the community, and just that disconnection from community and people, and especially the disconnection between the church and the community. And so we wanted to create a really positive experience for people, regardless of whether they come to church or not, regardless of whether they attended the service or not. We wanted to provide a very homey experience for people to have a great experience in a church building, and to kind of break down that wall between church and community, but also to actually assist in helping people, and you know, if there was a need, or if that person needed referral, or if they needed some other services, you know, we could be able to point them in the right direction.
Like a place of first resort for people almost to come and have that sort of triage almost, to, you know, be directed to a more specialised kind of service.
Exactly, and what we found over time is people that may have just come in, walked off the street to share lunch with us. You know, we've had several people, after coming for a few months, decide that they would like to come and enjoy the service, and so they've actually become a part of St. Peter's Church, and some have actually become Christians through the process as well.
So it's a pathway as well.
So it's a pathway, it's a stepping stone, and it's hopefully an easy stepping stone for people to integrate well into a church community as well. Yeah.
And if I remember rightly, part of the grant application was also around a training component for some of the people involved, so it's about kind of raising up ministry and equipping people as well.
Exactly, yeah. So we've got a couple of ladies next year beginning training at St. Mark's in Canberra in Christian ministry and theology, and the hope, the idea is for them to gain some life skills to be able to not only gain employment in the future, but also to work within the ministry and to grow the ministry, to assist and to help other people as well. We've had several ladies, including myself, also developing the food handling skills and to really develop that side of the ministry as well. So it's to create a team that sustains into the future. And so, you know, it can go on whether I'm in Leongatha or Sale or anywhere else.
That's really important, isn't it? That these things are not overly personnel dependent.
That's right.
Very similar in some ways to the social enterprise at 123 in terms of trying to, you know, where this painting comes from, trying to equip people, for, you know, with those life skills so that they can actually, you know, move on to other kind of roles and responsibilities with a sense of confidence and self-worth. And that's a great ministry, I think, to be providing. And the process itself for applying for the grant, I know, you know, you put a lot of work into it, but is that an onerous or overly arduous process, or would you encourage others to kind of have a go if you've got the germ of an idea?
I think it's a great process to go through regardless of the end. Because it really cemented that the intention behind things. It really cemented why we're doing it and how we're doing it and the process of it, and became really clear in having to go through the process, all of those things.
That's good to hear.
It wasn't too overwhelming.
No, that's good. So you've got to be in it to win it.
I
think the next round is early next year, around April. 2 rounds a year, April and October, and Catherine Muston's very good at putting the kind of reminders out to encourage people to get involved. So look forward to seeing how that project unfolds, Belinda, and well done on on that initiative. And we also look forward to seeing how your long and fruitful ordained ministry unfolds amongst us, Belinda, and it's wonderful to have a homegrown ordination candidate, one of several at the moment, which is really encouraging, and you will be very much in our thoughts and prayers over the next 2 to 3 weeks as you prepare for that wonderful event in your life, and a wonderful event in the life of the Church of God also. So God bless you, and thank you again for your ministry today.
Thank you for having me here. That's great. Thanks.
Pleasure. See you next time, folks.
Bye.